This episode of the Guitar Speak podcast is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the comprehensive online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott. Now, Joe is a brilliant professional guitarist and was also the head of guitar at the legendary Guitar Institute of Technology in LA and the McNally Smith College of Music. Here's a few words from Joe about the course.
If you're tired of wading through hundreds of random guitar videos and just want to become a better player, Fretboard Biology is your answer. Fretboard Biology is a self-paced, college-level program that will give you the right instruction, in the right amounts, and in the right order. You'll learn the same information I taught to thousands of other guitar players over 30 years of teaching in top music colleges. If you want to make real progress with your guitar playing, then sign up for a free 7-day trial at fretboardbiology.com.
Hi there, you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name is Matt Wakeling and this is the show that I produce in Sydney, Australia. Been running since 2016 and I speak to guitar players from all around the world. Thank you so much for joining me for episode number 187. Now today I speak with Ed Lim. Ed is the guitar product manager at Roland and Boss Australia and also into Asia. Now, Ed's an excellent guitarist. You really need to check out his videos. And he's a brilliant boss mind. He's written some excellent articles as well, such as the Boss Metal Zone, You Are Using It Wrong article, which is excellent. And a really great how-to guide for the Boss MS3. Super in-depth, and as an MS3 user myself, I totally appreciated that one. In fact, if you've been listening to the show for any length of time, you'll know I am a huge Boss fan. My very first ever guitar pedal was a Boss DS1, the orange distortion that I got way back in 1986. So I always love to talk Boss on the Guitar Speak podcast. And it was super cool to have Ed on the show. We spoke about a bunch of stuff, including some of the new product releases we have seen in 2021. I try and find out a little bit about what the future might hold. We talk about some of the great artists and promoters that Ed works with. And I started the conversation by asking about Ed's role and some of the many hats he wears over there at Roland and Boss.
Well, I have several jobs here.
Yeah.
So let's start with the main one. So my main role that I was hired for is guitar product manager for Australia.
Okay, awesome.
So that means that I take care of pretty much everything to do with the guitar side of the business, which is, all the Boss products. I do a bit of everything from marketing, social media, events when we could have events. Melbourne Guitar Show was my, the highlight of the year in many ways, because we got to do a bit of a show and engage with all the community. So there's that part of it. And then I'm also head of product management at Roland Australia, which means all the other guys who do, I take care of guitar. We've got guys who do piano, synth, and drums. So I manage that side of things as well.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
And that's number 2. And then number 3 is so I'm guitar product manager for the Asian region as well. Okay. So I help out with the other countries, doing what I do here, but helping them do it as well.
Okay. So what sort of regions of Asia does that cover?
Basically everywhere that's not Japan, because we're a Japanese company, yes. So Japan is its own region unto itself.
Yep.
But everywhere else in Asia and Asia Pacific essentially, so Australia, New Zealand included in that as well.
Okay, cool, awesome.
Yeah, so China, India.
Yeah.
Malaysia, Taiwan, Indonesia, everywhere. Really.
That's huge. And I guess compared to Australia, that's such a populous region. Like it's obvious we've got so much land mass in Australia, but our population is so small. So I guess that would be the bulk. Yeah,
it's really funny actually, because you're absolutely right. Like in terms of population, Australia is much smaller than most of our other, what we call sales units. But traditionally, I think Roland Australia have really kind of, same as Australia and New Zealand as countries in the world, have kind of done a bit better than, you might expect for the size of the country. So that's always been our history, and that's really cool.
what was your background going into these roles? Like, did you have, I don't know, any like business background or study or I get everyone, if people don't know yet too, by the way, Ed, people need to know you are a ripping guitarist. So you're not just some corporate dude crunching numbers. I've been digging your videos, which we'll talk a little bit more about too when we get to
thank you.
talking gear, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. I'm okay.
You're way okay.
I'm okay. I think the funny thing is, like this isn't me being overly kind of humble or anything, but like coming to work at Roland Australia has made me acutely aware of how good everyone else is.
Right.
Like, our managing director is like a fantastic jazz piano player.
Wow. Awesome.
And, half the guys in our warehouse are better guitarists than I am, kind of thing. But yeah, it's a funny story actually, and kind of a weird one, because my background before coming to work for Roland and Boss is actually in engineering.
Okay.
But, when I say that, everyone kind of goes, sound engineering, because that's our industry. But I was actually a mechanical engineer for about a decade before coming to work here.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so I used to work in the aircraft industry. I worked on the aviation interiors for a long time. But in the background, I was always a musician. Played in bands and really liked. I used to run a website. I wrote guitar reviews and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I slowly led towards this career, I guess.
Okay, cool.
And a bit of YouTube as well, as you've seen. Yep. Not anywhere near as big as some of the guys that we'll talk about today, but a little bit of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. It's cool to hear too. A really large company like Roland. You're still saying a lot of the guys you work with are really passionate musicians as well. So behind the business of things, of course, is really passionate players. That's cool.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, the vast majority of people that I work with are all very passionate and very competent musicians, which is really cool, but also quite intimidating at times.
That's cool. Hey, tell me about some of the artists that you might work with.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of artists, I guess, it's kind of an interesting question, because the people that we work with, I think, has changed quite a bit in the last little while. Because in this day and age, YouTubers are kind of the rock stars of today, right? Like they're the people who have such a far-reaching influence to guitar players everywhere. Rather than in the old days, you had these big cultural movements, like everyone still knows Slash, but these days there isn't quite any specific guitar hero that is a complete household name that's come out of the last 10 years for me, I guess.
Yeah.
So a bunch of the people that we work with are YouTube influencers or reviewers or artists, I guess. We talked about Gabor and Alex from I'm going to try and say this because I can never say it properly.
I know.
Super fun, awesome, happy time pedal show. I think I got that right.
I think you did. I'm not 100%
and
myself.
It's been really cool to kind of, try and help support their channel and see them growing. I think they just hit 20,000 subscribers recently, which is really cool for Australia and New Zealand being very small countries in the grand scheme of things. Yep. That's great.
Yeah, cool.
I work a lot with Brett Kingman as well. Awesome. Brett being, like the original YouTube guy for Guitar Gear, which is really great. And I do a bunch with Leon Todd as well. I'm not sure if you've seen his stuff.
A little bit, yeah. Tell me about him.
Yeah, so Leon's a fantastic guitar player and just great at sort of breaking down really difficult things and making them seem really understandable and really musical. So he's based in Perth, and again, his channel has just skyrocketed in the last couple of years. All full credit to him. It's been really cool.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the shift from, like, even when there's a new product launch, obviously there's a whole lot of behind the scenes work that happens. Then on a launch date, Brett Kingman's got the new Boss pedal, or Gabor's got, or whoever. Right. it's fascinating. I was talking, Brett was one of the first guys on this show, actually. It was really interesting to see how
Yeah, right.
how that model has shifted. I was talking to Michael Ross from Guitar Player magazine in the States. He was saying even an event like NAMM these days, it's awesome to get to NAMM, but it's not the be all and end all of, like, say, a new product release as it might have been a few years ago.
Yeah, that's true. And I think with the pandemic, that's sort of shifted even more, right? Because we can't be at NAMM. A lot of the stuff that you're seeing coming out now maybe would have been released at NAMM had NAMM happened, right?
Yeah.
But that being said, I still really love NAMM. NAMM is such a fun kind of gathering of like-minded people. There's an energy and an excitement to it. So I really do hope that comes back when it can.
Yeah, sure. And I guess in Australia, the big event in the last few years has been the Melbourne Guitar Show. We've almost had one up in Sydney a couple of times. It's been a long time between those shows, but down in Melbourne, it's been a big deal. That's been a big part of your focus too, you're saying, with events.
Yeah, it has. Since I started, every year that we've had a Melbourne Guitar Show, I've organized our stand, and it's always cool to put together a different concept and a different layout based on what we've released or, what we think people might want to try that year or what we want to showcase.
Yeah, cool. Now,
definitely one of the highlights of my year usually. So hopefully, again, when we can, hopefully that comes back.
Yeah, when's that? It's been like sort of August, I guess. In
yes.
previous years,
yeah.
So yeah,
first weekend of August usually.
Yeah, fingers crossed for next year, as we've been saying for a little while. Well, what other sort of events might you run in non-COVID times?
The big guitar one is Melbourne Guitar Show, but in the past we have done little clinics and showcases. Like, probably not so much since I've come on board, because I think that kind of in-store, in-person thing has petered off a little bit with the advent of YouTube and streaming and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But one thing that I have done since I started and that I'm very proud of is the Nita Strauss clinics. Maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah, when Alice Cooper was last out. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. So I helped put together this clinic run for Nita in collaboration with Ibanez. And we did a whole bunch of dates through Australia. And it was actually really cool to see how many people turned out, how many young people turned out to see her. Because, there is always the risk that, people are always saying that guitar playing is an aging kind of thing. And it's, it's guitars dying is always like a big headline somewhere, someday. Right?
Yeah.
But it is fantastic to see players like Nita, who are younger, but also kind of paying tribute to the people who came before them, and seeing that flow on to younger players and, kids and players everywhere these days.
Yeah, cool. Because I guess with her, the boss connection is the GT1000, which she brings out for those sorts of shows. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's right. Nita's been a GT user for many years, and basically, when she tours with Alice Cooper, sky's the limit, right? They have everything they could ever want. You can take all the backline, doesn't really matter. But when she does her own solo stuff, it's a bit more of a how do you say it? I guess when she does her own stuff, she takes GT1000 and plugs it straight into a PA, and that's her guitar rig.
Yeah, unreal, and sounds amazing.
Well, here's a funny thing, actually. This is a really surprising thing that I discovered when I was, going around kind of chaperoning Nita for these clinics, is that she just uses stock presets.
Oh, really? Wow.
She doesn't tweak them. She found a bunch that she likes, and those are the ones she uses for everything.
Wow.
So, people always come up later and ask us, oh, how do we get her patches? What's she doing? What amp is she using? What's she tweaking?
Yeah.
And we can, very genuinely just say it's literally just all in the box. That's, she found this one she likes, and that's the one.
Wow.
You can have exactly that.
That is cool. That is really cool. Hey, Roland and Boss have just launched a bunch of new guitar stuff. And again, I think I sort of alluded to this, but I really like, say, with Roland, you don't get all this crazy lead up for months online. We're working on something, something's coming, and people are freaking out. Just you wake up one morning and there's 5 or 6 really cool things. You're like, what?
Yeah.
What happened? What's going on? So I'm just off the top of my head, and you can probably fill in the gaps. But the new synth guitar, the GS1, dropped. The Bluetooth expression pedal, couple of new 200 models for synth and IR cabs, whole bunch of really cool pedal boards. They're just the things that spring to mind in the last.
We have been a bit
months.
busy, haven't we?
It's great. Do you want to talk through some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably the stuff that I really love the 200 series as a general form factor, as a line, as a concept. I really love them because they're compact, but they do so much. But at the same time, okay, I guess let me take a step back for a second. And the concept for the 200 series came from essentially paring down what we had in the 500 series, which is the super tweaky, deep dive kind of, you can do everything you possibly want inside of let's say a DB500. And that's really cool. A lot of people really love that. But like for me personally, I am a little bit more basic in my needs and wants. So I want to just, turn a couple of knobs and have a great sound straight away and not spend all of my time, listening and tweaking and playing with menus. So the 200 series form factor really works for me because it does all of the sounds, but it doesn't have as much option paralysis for me. It's got, 5 knobs or whatever it is on the front, and then that's away you go and you start making music. So yeah, SY200 is really exciting. It's an interesting one because I'm not natively a guitar synth kind of guy.
Uh-huh.
I'm a very classic rock, like Van Halen / Paul Gilbert. That's the kind of music I grew up with. But I decided to make that video that you were talking about earlier because I kind of was really inspired by the potential of SY200 to inspire people to create music. And so I think, doing that kind of big medley of sounds to kind of show what the huge versatility and breadth that one pedal can cover was kind of the right choice for me personally to try and get that message out to people.
Yeah, awesome. I love that video. We should, if people haven't seen it, Ed is shredding over a bunch of just classic synth riffs, like rock synth riffs, all through this little 200 series, the SY200, which is really cool, man. I loved it.
Yeah, I think, that was a fun one to put together because it goes from everything from, Toto to Muse to, dance hits like Lady Gaga and stuff like that.
That's great.
So that kind of really, for me, showcased the sonic possibilities of SY200. And I'm really happy that we put that out because, the precursor to SY200 obviously is SY1, the compact synthesizer pedal. And people really, really love that because it is, again, it's so tactile. Just turn the knobs. Yeah. It's got these families. If you want an organ sound, there's a knob that says organ and 11 variations of that. It's not, I'm too stupid for stuff like LFOs and oscillators and all of that kind of in-depth.
I'm with you, man.
So I wanted to say pads, and then I get a pad sound, right? That's what works for me. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed that for SY1, but the thing that we heard over and over and over again was, I wish I had presets.
Right, yep.
Right, because you've got so many sounds, but I guess, you have to change them every time.
Yeah.
So that's essentially how SY200 came about, is we did that. We did what people asked for, and we really tried to make sure that we retained that fun element to it. So there's no deep menus in this, even though it has a screen and stuff. Uh-huh. It is still very much all the stuff that you see on the top panel.
Right.
But with presets.
I had, way back in the day, I had the Boss DD20. So that was the dual pedal, first the dual pedal.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Similar, although the 200s, like, ramp it up 1,000,000%.
Oh, but DD20 is a classic though, isn't it?
It is great. That idea of what you
Yeah.
see is what you get, and then plus you can add presets. But the 200s are cool because they're a little bit smaller again. And if you want to dive into MIDI, you could, but you don't have to.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about the IR 200?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually looking at the one on my desk right now.
Yeah.
IR 200 comes from, I guess it's, once you spend enough time working for the company, it's easy to see the genesis of where things come from. So, we've had IR loading capabilities start to become more important in our products over the last couple of years, right? We've got GT1000, which was the first GT for us that loaded IRs.
Okay, yeah.
And the tube amp expander, the load box, which lots of people really enjoy because it lets them crank their vintage Marshalls or whatever it is without burning the house down.
Yes, yeah, that looks awesome.
And the cab section of that is impulse response based as well.
Okay.
So it's sort of naturally led on that we could take, all those technologies that we've been working on and put it in a form factor that allowed people who want to have a pedal board based amp and cab section, but at the same time still want to retain all of their effects, right? Because guitar players collect weird and wacky effects that are very personal to them. And this kind of just lets people bring all of those worlds together, which I think is really fantastic.
Yeah, I like the idea. You can just whack it at the end of your pedal board, and you're good to go direct then. If that's not been a thing for you before, that's really cool.
Yeah. Something I really like about IR 200 as well is it's got the effects loop, which means that if you run all of the things that would usually come after the pedal in the effects loop, you get all of that in your headphones out.
Okay, yeah.
So you can practice with your whole pedal board on headphones at any time, which is really cool. I just had one other little thing that, I think maybe a lot of people haven't quite realized about IR 200 yet as well, is going back to the theme of us taking different things that we've developed and then creating a new kind of product out of them. The headphones out of IR 200 actually has some of the spatial kind of room ambience technology from the Wozler Air headphones.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
People went nuts for that.
Yeah, because Wozler Air has been a huge hit for us, right? It's like, honestly, the best headphones practice experience I've ever had in my life.
Uh-huh, yeah.
And, last NAMM, I had the opportunity to be at the show, and I was one of the demonstrators for the Wozler Air booth that we had.
Man, that's awesome.
And that was, lines out the door of people just going, wow, this sounds so immersive and so good.
Yeah.
And so we took part of that technology and put it into the headphones output of IR 200 so that when you are practicing with your pedal board, you get much more of a room kind of experience.
That's cool. Yep. This episode is brought to you by Fretboard Biology, the online guitar course put together by Joe Elliott, ex-head of guitar at GIT and the McNally Smith College of Music. Now, Joe and I go back a few years. We first met in 2017 through the podcast when we were talking about Joe's excellent jazz fusion album, Truth Serum, and also about Joe's career as an educator at some of those high-level institutions. So when Joe put together the Fretboard Biology course and asked me to be one of the beta testers, I was super stoked. I was really honoured. And I can honestly say, as a music educator, the course is beautifully paced and logically laid out. Other musicians such as Greg Koch and Brett Garsed have also endorsed the course, so please check out the links in our show notes for Fretboard Biology. Excited to see the GS1, the guitar synth. I had again back in the I'm a huge Boss fan. There's probably no one who listens to this show who hasn't owned a Boss pedal at some stage.
Yeah.
So back in the day I had I think it was a GR700, the synth with the handlebar.
Oh, yes. I've actually got one of those. Well, not here, but at the office by my desk. It's huge. The technology's come a long way, hasn't it?
I bet. Tell me about the GS1.
GS1 is it's a heritage thing for us. It's trying to kind of take our heritage and push it forward into the future. Because essentially, we were one of the first, if not the first companies to create guitar synthesizers. And, like that, to me, you're right, talking about the old, there's that iconic image of, Jimmy Page with the big, crazy synth guitar. And we're trying to take that heritage and push it in a new direction. And GS1 is kind of similar to the SY1 and SY200 concept in that we want it to have that immediacy and that kind of fun factor to it. Right? Not a lot of tweaking, pretty straightforward. We've got an app that does all the sounds, but it is very quick and very easy to get a crazy synth sound out of it. And you don't need a special cable. You don't even need you don't need a pedal anymore with this guitar, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I think the idea is to try and create a new kind of instrument, almost a new version of the guitar that just opens up more possibilities for people.
Yeah. Cool. I love that.
And what I like about that, I think, is guitar is changing and evolving, and obviously guitar music, as I grew up with, is not really the focus of mainstream music at the moment, right? There's rock and grunge and metal and stuff. That's not what you hear on the radio. But what you do hear on the radio is more electronic based sounds and more, like that's the kind of thing. That's where I see possibilities for something like GS1.
Yeah.
The Eurus guitar will, that you'll be able to use your guitar, which you already know how to play as a guitar player, but kind of enter a new genre and a new medium and maybe play in a different space. And I think it's pretty common actually to see, artists who would have had completely produced in the box electronic sounds on their record, but take a full band on tour, because nothing beats hearing a live band.
Totally. Yep.
And so I think something like the Eurus guitar has immense possibilities to sort of sit in between both those worlds and be a guitar, but also live in today's music world.
It's funny. I was just watching a Mandalorian doco, and the composer for that, Ludwig Göransson. I don't know if you've seen this, but he pulls out this old GR300.
Yes, I have seen that. Really cool. Really exciting.
So that was pretty cool.
I love the Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I was especially stoked to see that guitar. That was worlds colliding of nerddom. Star Wars plus the guitar tech. So.
Absolutely.
Hey, Ed, I don't know how much you can speak into this question, so no pressure, but have you got any ideas of where guitar tech and perhaps Boss Roland might be headed? What could we see coming up?
That's an interesting question, and obviously I can't reveal anything on what we've got planned for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But I will say that there's a lot of exciting stuff coming. There are some things that are on the list that I'm personally very excited about. As to the general direction in which we're going, that's such an interesting question. I think I'm really kind of stoked to join the company at what seems to be a bit of a period of renaissance for the brand, right? Like we're sort of simultaneously trying to step into the future with cool new products like SY200 and IR200.
Yeah.
But at the same time, still kind of respecting and building on our decades-long heritage with things like the Wazacraft pedals.
Yeah.
So I think that will be the continuing theme for us, is trying to take both of those paths forward into the future, that advancing things on the cutting edge while still remembering that, we have such a long heritage of things that people really like and want more of. So
that's cool.
I'm not sure if that really answers your question, but
well, look, as much as I sort of expected, I know that's it's not a fair question to say what's coming up. We know, as I said, Roland Boss will just drop something that's been like a little duck paddling underwater ferociously. And then the stuff drops. I don't know if you know Matt Knight from boss in Europe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
He's cool.
All of the boss guys around the globe are actually pretty close. Like we've got a chat group that we talk about guitar stuff all the time. Yeah. And Matt's been on your show, hasn't he?
Yeah, a while ago when the MS3 came out, I freaked out and I eventually got one, and it changed my life, Ed. And in fact,
nice.
I should let listeners know you wrote an excellent guide to deep diving into the MS3 as well. Which
thank you. Oh, that's cool.
It was definitely useful.
I'm glad that you found that useful.
Yeah, totally. So, I got Matt on the show not long after the MS3 because I think he was involved in some of the promotion for that with, the band, the name's slipping from my head, the prog rock band.
Joe Branton's band. Yeah, sorry, I can't remember what
they're awesome.
Polymath,
that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, one thing Matt said, which was really cool, which you suggested as well, the idea of Boss's heritage is really deep, and we all know that and appreciate that. But he said the philosophy, and the Japanese philosophy, is not really to go backwards with this stuff, but to always go forward. So I guess the closest thing you guys have to a reissue would be the Wazacraft. And
correct.
Even then, it's not just a straight reissue like we see in other spheres. It's there's always the custom circuit. There's always a little nod to the future.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, because that's been the whole concept of the Wazacraft line is not to do a straight reissue, but to try and add something to it as well.
Yeah, nice.
And essentially, like how I like to think of it is, it's hot rodded versions of our own classics.
Yeah.
Right, because in many ways, we probably had a big hand in jump-starting the whole, boutique pedal industry, because people were modding DS1s and BD2s and stuff.
Yep.
And I think at some point we kind of went, well, we can probably do that too, actually, right? Of all the people to be able to do that, it's probably us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool. And it's always fun to see the speculation, what could the next Wazacraft pedal be? Yes,
yeah. But that whole line has been one of my favorite things. One of my favorite pedals of ever, actually, probably is the DC2W, the Dimension pedal.
Oh, okay, yep.
Right, because that's such an oddball. It doesn't have any knobs on it. It's just got the 4 buttons, and the effect itself is so unusual. It's not really a chorus. It just kind of makes everything a bit bigger, makes everything feel a bit. A bit more spatially enhanced. And that pedal is really kind of a testament to the whole Wazacraft engineering, that when the DC2 pedal came out in the 80s, that was based on a big rack unit.
Yeah, that's right. The Dimension.
The SD-D320. And at the time, we had to make changes and compromises to fit it into a tiny little pedal.
Yeah.
But so that's why when we went back to DC2W, the Wazacraft version, now we do have the technology to put basically a big rack unit's worth of sounds into a compact pedal, and that's what we did.
Unreal, man. That's cool. I had the Digital Dimension, which was, I don't know, was it the cousin of that pedal?
Oh, the DC3.
DC3. Yes. It had the knobs, but it had a lot of that vibe, and that was my always-on pedal for a long time.
Oh, very cool.
It was the 90s, so I mean, I know it's not a chorus. You shouldn't call it a chorus, but it was a different age when I could leave that pedal on for the whole show. But I still love that sound.
Great.
So that was super cool.
Well, you know what? I think that chorus is making a comeback. I'm starting to hear a lot more than, like there was probably an entire decade or two where everyone just turned all their chorus pedals off.
Yeah.
But I, I've always loved it, so I'm glad to hear it coming back, whether that's in, R&B or whatever it is.
Yeah, me too, man. I'm with you. I've always got one ready to go on a gig as well, so it's good times.
Yeah.
Excellent. Hey, Ed, it's been so fun talking Roland and Boss stuff with you. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, there you go. Ed Lim on the Guitar Speak podcast, talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is Boss and Roland equipment. Thanks, Ed, for joining us. We'll have to have you back sometime. Thanks also to Fretboard Biology, to Joe and the team there for sponsoring another episode. Please check out the links in the show notes. All right, that's just about it from me. I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to the Guitar Speak podcast. Of course, we've also got our iconic albums series running concurrently with our interviews, and you can check all of that out at guitarspeakpodcast.com, or just subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much anywhere else you can pod. All right, my name is Matt Wakeling. You've been listening to the Guitar Speak podcast, and I'd like to leave you with some words of wisdom from the legendary Michael Schenker, shredding guitarist from UFO and MSG, who told me back in episode 150, keep on rocking.